Okay, everyone, welcome back to another episode of PRUEBA01. Today's a special episode because it will be the first one in English. A little FYI.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is the first
We can do
podcast.
Spanish too. We can Spanglish.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it will be both because
Yeah.
some words in Spanish I can't find the translation in English.
Yeah, that's cool. Me too.
But yeah, in today's episode, I have a very special guest of mine. It's my oldest cousin, Oscar. Welcome.
Thank you.
How's everything with you?
Good. I'm honored. Honestly, I'm
Yeah.
honored. I was very excited when you guys started the podcast. I was happy to see and watch some of them, except for the last episode. I need to catch up on that.
Oh, with my friend?
Yeah,
with Ricardo?
Ricardo.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's the second episode with him, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So no, yeah. Just thank you for thinking of me and wanting me on the podcast, and I'm grateful for that. So
No,
Glad to
yeah,
be
thank you for your time because I know you live pretty far from here. So
yeah, it's all good.
coming and doing this I appreciate you a lot for that.
Of course, bro.
So for the first part of the podcast, I wanted to start by saying you're the oldest cousin out of all of us, and I wanted to ask you a couple of questions on how was your experience growing up as a first born for a family, and
Yeah.
how you experience like your childhood without having cousins or like a brother, like
Ooh.
siblings.
That's deep.
Yeah, I wanted to go into that topic if that's okay with you.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've thought about this. I thought about one day being able to share my story with you guys.
Yeah.
Being the firstborn, el primero que nació de las dos partes de mi familia, de mi papá y de mi mamá.
Oh, from your family too.
Yeah, so both my parents are the oldest of three.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom's the oldest, your mom's the second oldest,
Yeah.
and then our tia Angelica,
youngest.
she's the youngest. So then my dad's the oldest, and he's only old by 1 year, and literally 1 year. My twin uncles, they're all born on the same day, May 8th, but a year apart. So it's a trip to even have that in I don't know what that means, for them, but they have their own issues. But my parents divorced when I was very young. My dad left us for another woman who is my current stepmom. He's been married to her for this whole time. I have two younger half brothers.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
don't know
Diego y Juan Carlos. So Diego is Kevin's age.
that. Oh, really?
Yes, so they are the same year. Juan Carlos is probably like 2 to 3 years younger. But so I grew up.
You grew up in Mexico.
I was born in Mexico City. I remember a lot of my life there. I remember our grandfather, who we know as is our step grandfather.
Correct.
And he was abuelo oso, and that's where part of that, to me, that passing on of the animal spirit, and in general, kind of like tying in, and we'll maybe go into that later. But yeah, I remember a lot. I remember when growing up with Kathy, who was the second oldest. So the third daughter or aunt of ours, the youngest one, Angelica, had Kathy, and she's 2 years younger than us. And Jocelyn is her name.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, the reason why we call her Kathy is because there was a
Cartoon,
Kathy la Oruga, which is Kathy the caterpillar. And apparently when she was born, it was one of my favorite cartoons. And when she was born, I said Katia Uga, and everyone, that was her nickname. And my Aunt Angelica always says, I regret not naming her that as her actual name.
Jocelyn?
Yeah. Instead of Jocelyn, Kati.
Okay.
And then we also have a cousin already named Kati, Valle.
Oh, yeah.
I remember the Valles. But yeah, so in our side, our direct side, our family, I was the firstborn, but I was one of the first oldest boys in general in our grandmother's side of the family. We had Paco y Lalo, who were really the oldest of me, and then it was just me.
Yeah.
And then it was everyone else after that. But I grew up with a single mom, divorced, who chose to be rebellious and leave. Her dream was the United States and wanting to come out here.
That had been her dream, huh? Ever since she
Yeah.
was. Where do you think she got that idea from, moving over here?
I remember a story of her when she was a kid growing up in elementary school. A lo mejor la primaria o secundaria, no sé cuándo.
About the United States?
Yeah, había una niña, one girl that would come and she's like, oh, I know English. And she'd be like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And they're like, ah! She knows English. And so my mom was like, oh, yeah, one day, you know. And you know, the influence of the United States is heavy.
Very heavy.
Very heavy,
yeah.
In
Mexico.
Mexico and South America, and then influenced a lot of other states, but it became there first.
Yeah.
I would say. And so that's where like the whole American dream really came from, was more of like, yes, it did start when immigrants back in the day on that side, but you have to understand that like there's a whole nother wanting to live in the land of the free when you're an indigenous and you've been you're in a sense, map wise, it's almost like messes up with your mind. You're below in the map above America.
Yeah.
And so there's always been this drawn, even from when I remember going once we moved, I was 3 years old, my mom moved, single, we lived in Hollywood. I grew up with a lot of babysitters. And I was only back at home every winter, every summer break, and every Easter break.
How old were you when you moved over here? Like, is
3.
this babysitting?
Between 3 and 4.
Between 3 and 4?
Yeah.
So that's when you were getting babysitted by here in the United States?
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I believe at some point, I don't know if it was when we first moved out here or shortly after, our Aunt Angelica and her husband or boyfriend at the time, which was our sister, is Jocelyn. We call each other brother and sister. It's, in Spanish, when you're related that way, you're not your first cousin, second cousin. You're your primo hermanos, and that means you're your cousin, brother cousins, or cousin, you know, in a sense. And so, because I was the only child, and when Kathy was born, she always called me brother, and I always called her sister. And that's how we saw each other, and that's how we protected each other. Because at some point, I don't know if it was the beginning when I first moved out here with my mom, or shortly after my aunt came, and she came with Kathy and her dad.
Yeah.
Mickey is his name, you know, Mickey Alfaro. And we all lived together in Hollywood. So much that I remember vividly being on a stripper stage with my sister, and
what the hell?
Glass mirrors behind us. Is during the day, doors open, dark as hell inside, doors open, and our family was cleaning the stripper club.
Oh, really?
To make 100%.
That's crazy. Yeah, that I don't.
You know, 100. And there's no. I say this with no shame, and everyone. We all came from where we are. I know that growing up as a kid, my mom didn't come back with dollar bills for no reason, and I know that she worked hard and she worked several jobs, and part of that was, I know she was a stripper, or she was some sort of waitress, like somewhere where men, you know, and
I mean,
she did what she had to do to give me
food,
the best version of my life that I could have, you know? And it was there was a lot of growing pains, you know, growing up from Hollywood to LA, and having to remember certain vivid things that are very traumatizing. Most importantly for me was abandonment issues. A lot of abandonment from the day that my dad left to constantly being away from my mother at a young age because she had to work constantly.
Yeah.
And then being away from my family. And so I craved to be back home. I loved
around the people
in Mexico.
Close to you, yeah.
I begged my mom to move back. I begged her, and we tried a couple times.
But it wasn't working?
And it didn't work out, you know. But every time something did happen, I mean, the last time we tried to move out there, we came back with Raul, Pop, my stepdad. And that was the best thing that could have happened to us and my mom. But I longed for family. I always did.
Yeah.
And growing up without a father, I always knew I wanted to be a father myself. But um, my priority, and at that time, growing up as a kid, were my brothers and my sisters. So Kathy, I protected her with all my life, and I loved her.
From those experiences that she could
Yeah,
have gone through.
yeah, and we grew up together in some hard times. I remember one time waking up in the middle of the night to my Aunt Angelica crying and yelling because, our family's hysterically dramatic. Not to be like super just completely Debbie Downer on the whole situation. There's a lot of beautiful, laughable moments and beautiful times that we spent together outside of these moments, but there are those times where you remember, and one of them was my mom opening up the door to this studio apartment in Hollywood. Like I remember, like here, like let's say where I'm sitting as is the bed on a mattress, and my Aunt Angelica hugging me and Kathy, and we were scared because apparently there was a rat going around, right?
A rat?
A rat,
Oh.
yeah. And so I remember the door entrance to the apartment was on this same side of the wall, and I remember the it was so dark and the door cracking and the light coming through, and it was my mom, and we were like, oh, thank God, my mom's home and Norma's home, like, oh, we're all good. And but all that energy sticks with you,
Yeah.
it stays with us, and it's passed down, and that's a whole nother story, that a rabbit hole we can get into. But
Yeah, and
those were the beginning times of my life.
I can't imagine how your mom felt during that process of going back and forth
Yeah.
as a woman, because it's something funny to me how none of us from our family, we never had like a solid father figure.
No.
There was always something wrong going on with our father's side.
Yeah.
It's just crazy to me how, for example, the last time I saw my dad, I was 12. So I never learned how to shave. I never learned how to change a tire, and there was no father figure to teach me the man stuff that I
Yeah.
could have learned from him,
I
and none
agree.
of us did. Yeah.
Yeah, and you make a very big valid point in general, that I don't think I would say the exception maybe of the healthiest father figure that anyone could have to a certain extent might have been Kevin.
Hmm.
Miguel was a hard worker.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He was a good man, and
Correct.
in certain ways, everyone has their fault. But even then, they all fail in one way or another. They have failed,
Exactly. All of them
and they have
have
failed our
failed.
family. And so that's been my biggest goal, is to break those patterns for my children.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that I can do from a distance was to support you guys and get you guys to a place where I always wanted to be that for you, because I knew you didn't have it. I know Kevin didn't have it. So I also always made sure that I could be the biggest brother that I could for you guys, and try to show up
Yeah.
for you guys in the best way. A lot of that came into that's prevented that was distance for us.
Yeah. That was a big factor
Yeah.
that kept
I,
us from.
I feel guilty a lot for that, because I chose not to live here for a long time.
Hmm.
I chose to move my family outside of Las Vegas and not be scared of trying something different, because I knew that I felt that, like, I didn't feel my children would have the best that they could in Vegas, because it's a let's be real, it's a grown up city.
City. Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of extracurricular activities for young kids.
For young people,
And
no.
so they're forced to grow up in a very rapid way here in the city. And I just didn't want to do that to my kids.
Yeah, and that was the best decision you could have taken.
Yeah, but it was very hard,
Yeah.
because even to this day, even living 30 minutes away from you guys, I struggle. Like, you guys get together so often, like last night, where, like, I was like, man, I feel the FOMO. I've always felt the FOMO. And it's still a big wound and healing thing for me, because I grew up here alone. My family were the people that took care of me. you know, my mom would basically end up becoming friends with my friends from school and their
Yeah.
family. And then when she knew that she could trust them, they became my babysitters. And then my babysitters became my family. And so I have certain families that I vividly remember as a kid where this was my home then. So much that one family asked my mom if they can adopt me from her.
Really?
Yeah. And they had it. They had a beautiful house, big house in Lancaster, you know, um, California, and you know, they gave their son. He was spoiled as shit, man. That dude was spoiled. People always say, "Oh, you're spoiled." I was spoiled in love. I wasn't spoiled with everything I
With
had.
material.
Yeah, and when I did have, my materialism was toys.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so I had toys. Big deal. But I took care of my toys too, and I played with them for hours. And so my mom was like, "Yeah, well, here's some more."
Yeah.
You know, as another babysitter of mine, my toys.
Yeah.
You know, and so, yeah.
So the experience, like growing up, and for example, let's go to like the school side.
Mm.
How did, coming from Mexico, how was that experience of you going to school without knowing the language or
Well, it's funny because you have to remember I was before school, even before preschool, when I moved out here. So my mom says that I learned English through watching TV.
most likely you did.
Yeah, and then I was teaching her how to speak English. And people trip out. All my life, they're tripped out because I don't have a Spanish accent when I speak English. And when I speak Spanish, it's very hard unless I practice it.
Yeah, I mean,
You know, I have both, best of both worlds. And so they're just always like, whoa, like, who are you? And I was the translator. I
yeah.
was always the translator. When Abuelita was here with us, I was in the middle. When it became, we talked about this last time we were together, kindergarten to first grade. Actually, kindergarten was by myself. First grade is when our grandmother retired. And so she retired, and I remember being at a retirement in Mexico City and then coming to stay with us full time to help take care of me because, again, my mom was single mom working. But she became our teacher's aide in school. And so she ended up making friends with my first grade teacher. Her name was Miss Hill. And that was the first time I ever had a pumpkin pie during close to like Thanksgiving. She invited us to her house. And I remember being in the middle of our grandma and her and me translating.
Yeah.
And so I was always a translator, and that helped my English too.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
translating all the time. Still find myself translating to this day.
How do you remember school? Did you have a lot of friends?
So school was, kindergarten was the best I feel experience. After first grade, I remember getting bullied a lot.
For what?
For being Hispanic.
For being Hispanic?
Yeah, I mean, Alhambra at the time, it was still a situation where we were still the minority. And a lot of Hispanic kids coming from LA and East LA. I mean, you have a lot of history with the Cholos, the Pachucos prior to that, you know, all the Chicanos, all this stuff. And you have East LA and South Pasadena, which kind of merges, but it's also Alhambra. So you have this like path where all of a sudden you go from like East LA ghetto to like nice area.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a huge difference because you have San Marino, where a lot of movies are filmed, and Pasadena as well. You have the Rose Bowl, UCLA. You know, Father of the Bride was filmed there. A lot of movies were filmed in that area. And then you have like El Sereno, which is East LA, starting towards LA. That's a huge difference. And back then, when growing up, right before high school, there's a lot of gang violence.
Oh yeah, do you remember?
Oh yeah, Latinos. You had Latinos against the Huaching, where the Huaching was the Asian gang, and then you had the black gang, and there was a lot of violence. The police department was a little bit further outside of Main Street, so they ended up, before I went to high school, they ended up moving the police department, which
Closer
we just
to the
saw
area?
in a Netflix show.
No way.
Yeah, there's a Netflix show. What's the show called, hon?
It was homicides in Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's like homicides. It's new, and there's 2 seasons, New York and L.A.
And they
First
talk about
episode talks about a very famous
Spectre.
what is his name?
Spectre,
Yeah,
the music
Phil Spector, the music producer, old school music producer, and he killed someone. It was there in Alhambra. And so I was like, oh my gosh. And they show the police department. That police department moved across the street from the high school.
Because of how much
Because of all
violence
the, yes,
was going on.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
correct.
That's
so
crazy.
by the time I got there, it was all kind of taken care of and addressed. But yeah, that's that growing up there, I had to learn how to protect myself. And so my mom put me in martial arts.
Oh, yeah. Correct.
Since the age of 5. And so she's like, no, I won't let anyone punk you. You got to learn. And so I remember going into it, and it was really tough. So it was called Kim's Hapkido, Master Kim. His teacher was Bruce Lee's teacher.
No way.
Yeah.
What
yeah.
the hell?
So he came. He was from Korea though. So he came and he started studios in LA. And I remember back then we would have to even meditating if we were on our knees, and if we anything that we were incorrect our posture, we'd get hit with a bamboo stick. Those practice like 6. And so my mom got pissed at one point and took me out. And
because
then,
they were hitting you with the stick?
Yeah. And then I actually I think I said something, and I said, no, I want to continue going. I want to protect myself. And there was this older girl, big, butch girl. I don't know what year she was in. I was in 1st grade. And she was grabbing me and tossing me around, just like a rag doll, just would grab me. And here I am being taught not to hit a girl, and I never did hit her. But once I got into martial arts, my mom came, talked to her, and she's like, hey,
You need
don't
to chill out.
mess with my kid. He's in martial arts. I told him, and this was my rule always. I told him he can never allowed to start something, but he has my permission to finish it.
Yeah.
And it would be situations like that where I've always just gone along with everyone, and there's always been a jealousy with men wanting something against me. The masculine was always trying to attack me, and I think it was because I'm a Cancer. I'm already sensitive in nature and empathic and empathetic, and then I was raised by all women because it was our grandma,
Just
our
women, yeah.
moms, and then Kathy until Kevin was born, which wasn't for me almost 12 years later.
Yeah.
And not having a father figure, I was missing that masculine energy, that healthy masculine energy. So it was completely outweighed. We all carry masculine and feminine energy.
Correct.
And because I didn't have a masculine energy to balance that feminine energy, and our moms, they were fucking wild, yo. Like, no lies, I love you. Thank you for raising us. I'm grateful for the family that I had. But they were wild. Like, I was caught, me and Kathy were caught in the middle of my Aunt Angelica and my mom fist fighting. Right in the middle of like things and things said and things thrown, like, it was very toxic.
Yeah, and we go back to the same point of the father figure, because they didn't have a father figure either. So
Exactly.
there wasn't that masculine energy or that masculine figure of telling them what's good or bad on that side of what a man could teach.
Yeah, and it's interesting as we're speaking, it's dawning on me that there seems to be this narrative of men being toxic and being very toxic, and some men are very toxic and expressing that. But if we go back to the history, a lot of them come from broken homes.
Yeah.
And the masculine energy back then was more of you gotta go back to tribal, where it was the chief and the warrior, and they knew when to use that power, when not to, and when to hold peace, and when to speak, and when to tell someone to honor. And it was more of that masculine. It was supposed to be more of a grounding energy,
Yeah.
and a grounding earth to where
Keeping everything stable.
correct versus the opposite.
Yeah.
And so and this is all, I learned all this obviously way years after, and I'm talking about in the last 8-9 years of my life.
Yeah.
Not knowing how to create boundaries, how to do this, because our family didn't have that.
Yeah.
So I had to learn how to protect myself always since I was little, going back, not getting off track. but I had to learn how to protect myself,
Yeah.
not just physically but also mentally, because I was never around anyone other that wasn't family, really.
Yeah.
And so that was a little rough to like have to navigate as a young man and constantly feel one way or another rejection.
Oh yeah, and seeing
You
your
know.
mom working and not having a lot of time to spend with you,
Yeah.
you had to go through like
Oh yeah, dude.
basically life by yourself.
Yeah, there was one time my mom was sleeping somewhere else and I was at a friend's house and we are like an hour away, and I didn't want to stay there. I just didn't feel comfortable, and there wasn't cell phones or anything, and I didn't remember the phone number of the house that she was in, and I had to break into my friend's house just to get into those old school written address
Oh,
books
okay, yeah.
to like get her number. But I set off the fucking alarm. They were on vacation. I had to answer the phone and say code word is jigs and like try to turn off the alarm because I knew the whole thing. Like I knew the routine, and yet the cops still came, and then I was like, I
And you
had
got
to
in
hide
trouble?
it, and I got in trouble, and all because I just wanted to call my mom. It's
Yeah.
crazy to think about, like having to go through that, and I would, and how honestly how like much we had to grow up as kids, even your generation.
Oh yeah.
You got how fast we had to grow up to protect ourselves, and it goes back to like this whole thing where I'm like, we grow up and we forget, we become serious, we become too serious, and we forget to connect with ourselves, to learn how to like heal all that and like connect back to our childhood. And so it just, this whole evolution that I've gone through, but it's all, everything that I went through is really did make me stronger. It really did. And I wouldn't change, I wouldn't change anything, because of course would I want it to be different, sure.
But you probably would have been a different person from
Yeah.
what you are right now.
And any adjustment I would have made or change would derail where I'm at now, and,
Oh, yeah.
and having the
The
fact that I have
butterfly
my
effect.
yeah, and
Yeah.
having my children. My children's ultimately for me the reward of it. I wouldn't change any of that. And so it's hurtful. Would I want my life to have been different in some ways? Yeah. But I'm grateful for where I'm at now. I have an opportunity right now to be back here close to you guys.
Yeah, it was, everything happens for a reason, and I feel glad in some way to move over here, even though it was in the worst possible way, because it was very traumatizing and it was terrible.
Yeah.
But it resulted in something very good, which was connecting with my cousins, because I never had that relationship of, oh, I'm gonna go with my cousins, or
Yeah.
I have that family very close to me. So
Right. Yeah.
the family I had, which was from my mom's side, we weren't really as close to them
Yeah.
because of my dad. He didn't really like them, so
Yeah.
we were isolated from family until we moved here, and
Yeah.
we started connecting with you guys again.
Yeah, and we tried. I mean, I remember. So when Alexa was born, I stayed back so that my mom and Raul can go be with them, when she was born. So my mom got to experience Alexa being born, and be there for some things, and I had to hang back. I was in high school. And so then when you were going to be born, I said, no, it's my turn. I said,
And you went over there?
I was there when you were born, bro.
Really?
I was at the hospital. I was taking care of Alexa.
No way, really?
Yeah,
That's
I was
cool.
there. So I was taking care of Alexa. I was there. I got there a few days before. Your mom was...
Wait, were you also born with the same doctor? As us?
No, but I did go to the same doctor as a kid.
Oh, okay,
Dr.
okay.
Torres.
Yeah.
I grew up going to him. He knows me. Well, I don't know where he is. If he's gone, God bless
Hopefully
him. He
he's
was
okay.
such a great
Because
doctor.
he was a very
such
good
great
doctor.
person. Oh yeah, I remember the last time I was there as an adult.
He was a family member by the end.
Yeah, I last time I was there as an adult, I ate way too much fucking tacos, and I had probably what would be my first situation of gastritis or IBS, and I was dying. And I went, and he's like doing the thing on the belly. Remember, he always did the thing on the belly.
Yeah.
you have gas. You've eaten too much tacos. I'm like, okay, gracias, Doctor Perez. But um,
Was this last time when we went to Acapulco? Was it the last time you were in Mexico?
Yes, that was the last time as an adult that I was in Mexico. Yes, it was that time that I was with him.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
it was
and
that
and then
time.
still in Acapulco when we were there in that condo,
Yeah.
I got sick as a dog that day.
My sister got sick over
I
there
think
very
it's
bad.
I think
too.
it was because we went to eat at a specific restaurant where we had fish. I remember, and then we got back that night and we were sick. We were all sick, but that's a whole nother.
Yeah, I don't remember that whole trip. I still have it like
That's when I drew the tattoo and we got the tattoos.
with my dad. too.
Yeah, there. Yeah, man. So much, man. So much stuff. But as a kid, I love going to Mexico and I love going back home and being able to experience where our grandmother grew up in San Pablo,
Oh, yeah.
and go through the whole Easter everything's traumatic, like Easter crucifixion, like seeing the reenactment of Jesus Christ crucifixion in her town. But it's all those memories. Like there's so much
That set you down on
history.
earth.
Yeah, so much
make,
history.
Make you humble.
It does. It does make you humble. It does. Really, it really does. We're really, really, really grateful because
Yeah, I'm very grateful to it too.
we're not just your typical, I would say, and I hate to say that, but there is stereotypes everywhere. We're not your typical stereotype Mexican family. We really aren't.
No.
We're well educated. Our family came and they were fighters and they were warriors. All our grandparents and our parents were teachers.
Yeah,
Our great grandmother, she wanted something better for them.
yeah,
And she got them out. And she got them out to the city and told them, well, you guys all go to the university and you all become teachers.
yeah,
They all became teachers. And then their children all became teachers,
Yeah.
including my mom. She didn't want to be a teacher. But our grandma said, fuck it, you're going to be a teacher. My mom said, okay, I'll be a physical education teacher. And that's where she met my dad.
yeah.
And if it wasn't for that, he was going to college to be a physical ed teacher and playing basketball. He's 6'4". Well, it's 5'2". I'm half-ass. You got more of the height out of everyone in
it.
family from your dad,
Yeah,
and you surpassed your dad.
probably, yeah.
Yeah, you're definitely taller than him.
But yeah, I was very grateful of my mom being a teacher, and her character has helped me a
Yeah.
lot on becoming the man I am today. 'Cause
100%.
yeah,
For all of us, they're really grateful. Like, I'm a hard worker. I'm not a millionaire, and I'm not where I want to be yet in life in that sense when it comes to financially. But everything that I know now is because I worked hard for it.
yeah,
I dedicated myself to it, but I got those morals and those things and the work value from our family.
from our parents. Yeah,
Yeah, and even Raul, being my stepdad, he's a hard worker. He's a
Yeah.
good man, a hard worker, and that's the closest of a father figure, a great father figure that I would have.
yeah. Even for my dad, like,
Yeah.
because he was very wise. I don't
Yeah.
want to say smart. He was probably very smart because he started his business and whatever. But he was very wise, and
He was.
he used to say a lot of stuff from what he used to read. And at the time, he would tell us, like, one day everything's gonna make sense. Whatever I tell you, one day everything's gonna make sense. You might not understand it right now, but it's important stuff for life.
Yeah.
Because
Uh,
I learned a lot from him, even though he wasn't the best father figure, or he had his problems. But I learned a lot. Right now, I realize how much I learned from him.
And in all honesty, he had a lot of knowledge.
Yeah.
And he retained a lot of knowledge, and I got a chance to experience that with him alone the last time I was there with you guys. We spent a lot of time together. For me, I was a grown-ass man at that point, and it really is how I saw it. We talked about meditation. We went to saunas together. We meditated, and we spent a lot of time together. And growing up and remembering your mom with anyone, I don't remember anyone with her
else.
but him.
Yeah.
I remember first got my first Game Boy. One of the only times I went to Mexico City and I got to hang out with my dad. Met my stepmom for the first time. He got me my first Game Boy, and my Game Boy came with Tetris. It was just what Game Boys came with back then. and I got a Spider-Man, my first Spider-Man game, which I still have that cartridge to this
Really?
day. Yeah, I still have the
No
cartridge.
way.
And I'm sure if we get a Game Boy and pop it in, it still work. But your dad and your mom would always steal my fucking Game Boy from me and be playing Tetris.
Oh, my dad used to play
Yeah,
Tetris? No
it
way.
always, man. And like I remember, like they would take me to go get. We had our record player back then because we still had the vinyls.
Yeah.
And I think it was your mom that got me the Simpsons vinyl. It was red. It was like a Simpsons record of songs that the Simpsons sang. Stupid, but
That's so cool. Yeah.
But I always, like your dad was a very special person in my life too. I grew up with him, and I got to spend time with him as an adult, and also being able to understand him because by that time I had already gone through a lot of hurt with your dad too. Like getting Alexa when the first time we brought you guys, Alexa and your mom over, I was 16 years old, not to say too much, because I know you haven't shared a whole lot, but there was a lot of times that I had to, I was mad. I was mad at your dad. I was mad at certain things. I was mad at certain people that would hurt us. I was mad at Kevin's dad or Kathy's dad. I was mad at my dad.
Yeah.
And so that there's a lot of that I had to also navigate to and become an adult and being able to
Analyze it and
process it. I had to process it too.
Yeah.
Because I had to get to a point where I had to, as a young fucking adult, now that I think about it, when I hung out with your dad, have to put that anger and that frustration away to be able to connect with him. And I stayed with you guys the whole 3 months I was there.
Yeah.
I fucking trained his staff to bartend. That was after I went to bartending school here. And I went, I was to spend that time, I had to put a lot back and learn from there to, I guess from a young age, just always know to like just move on, leave things behind in a sense, kind of sticks with you. But,
it sticks with you forever.
Still
but
does.
You learn how to deal with it. And
yeah.
Not to show it, because I don't know. Yeah, it's you process it, but you can still remember it vividly.
Yeah.
And it brings back the emotions you felt from those times.
Yeah.
But you just control your reaction to those
tough.
memories. And
It's tough because if anything, our moms more than anything taught us is to react versus respond.
yeah, no, yeah, but
It's the opposite, yo.
yeah, probably life.
Yo.
Life teaches you to control those situations.
Yeah.
And it's something I've learned too.
Yeah, I had to reprogram myself for Zen, for
That's
Zion.
I think that's the right
Yeah.
way to say it, because we're programmed based on what our parents taught us. And
Yeah, having Zen, my son, he's on the spectrum, autistic, medium, high functioning, and just started to realize within, including with my marriage and having a daughter who's 21 months older than him, knowing that, okay, the way that I learned how to deal with things isn't working with him.
yeah, no.
He, like, the form of communication, the firmness, the this and that,
Patience.
like, and so and patience is something that I don't think we were really taught too.
Oh no, never.
And so boundaries, patience, accountability for that matter. And so it's funny how, like, I guess this is kind of all leading to self-healing in a sense, this conversation, because as you're aware, that kind of led me to doing the men's groups and doing all that.
Spiritual group?
Yeah, and
Is it
it's
considered spiritual, or
No.
it's more of a?
it's more of in a sense like not replacing therapy, but it's a place where men can gather where they can feel safe to express themselves, where there's no judgment. There's a place where men can learn from each other, hold each other accountable, and create better habits and grow from there. And as you know, I invited you several times to some of those events, and it is beneficial. I'm not a part of them now, but I everything that I learned, I keep carrying with me, and it just continues to, in a sense, kind of unfold it within my own life. knowing that I don't have to do those things anymore,
Yeah.
but knowing that I'm carrying that and creating a balance within myself now. But it does lead to that. Ultimately, my life ended up becoming a place where I needed to learn how to heal for my own sake because it was affecting my body.
Yeah.
It was affecting my mental health and my physical body, literally to the point where I had that sciatic issue. I lost 2 inches from my left leg, where there's a doctor who wrote a book called The Emotion Code, and he says that the body keeps track of your trauma,
Yeah.
and now that ties in with chakras, and different places in your body hold different energies. Yeah, lower back, which is what the sciatic was financial issue and relationship issues. Throat chakra, like when you feel like you can't speak, you have neck issues, all this stuff. That's all being able not to be heard, not feeling heard. So the way I explain it to people is you gotta imagine like your chakras. They always show them as balls, right? Like circles, and you have chakras, and so those circles are spinning and spinning, and so if the energy can't flow through it, it's gonna get stuck. And what it's doing, it's that energy is physically shaving off your physical body. And so people that can't speak their truth have neck issues and have to have neck surgery or whatnot, or have always felt like a tightness in the throat, like the whole saying, you have
Un nudo, a knot.
un nudo, yeah.
A knot
Or
on your
here
throat.
they say, what is it, a frog in your throat, or
Oh, that's how
cat
they call
toad-
it over
yeah,
here?
yeah,
A frog
like-
in your throat?
yeah, it's weird. Yeah. Well, we have sana colita de rana, and that doesn't make sense. But yeah, and so,
You
I
think
had,
that
I
was
had to learn all that.
the turning point for your life to like have a different perspective on life?
No, the turning point in
Or
my
what,
life.
what do you think? What was the turning point?
It was
for-
it was learning that Zen was on the spectrum.
The whole process, or when he was born?
When he was actually diagnosed, like firmly diagnosed, it made me question everything. And I was like, why? Why is my son on the spectrum? What happened? And so I started digging into the internet and digging down the rabbit hole and finding different information and taking it with a grain of salt and gathering my truth. And so that led into, well, what's causing my body or his body to create a reaction? Because we're all on the spectrum. We're all on the spectrum one way or another. Now, after years of studies, they can look back and say, oh, Albert Einstein was on the spectrum. Nikola Tesla was on the spectrum. Beethoven was on the spectrum. All these people that have geniuses that have elevated, they stick to one topic and they're obsessed on one thing, and that is a spectrum. Now that they know that falls under the autistic spectrum situation or ADHD or whatever the case may be. But we're all on that in one way or another. But I remember specifically after doing research, going back and finding when we lived in Salt Lake, and there were, Zen was under 6 months old. He was probably around closer between 3 and 4 months old. Their mom wanted to go back to work, so we had to find a daycare center. And in order to get into the daycare center, they had to have a certain amount of shots, immunization shots, to go in there. And after the shots, for a full week, we were in and out of the ER with Zen.
Because of the reaction of the shots?
Yeah, the reaction of the shots. It started with Zion, actually, and I took Zion to the hospital in the middle of the night. She had a fever of 110 degrees. I was rushing up the hill. We went to the Children's Hospital in the unit in Salt Lake City, which is one of the best hospitals. They fly in kids, and went up there, and like an hour later, here comes their mom with Zen, and after that they were sick, high fevers. My mom came, she took care of the kids. I have pictures of them with the kids having cold towels on their heads. And I mean, ultimately, a lot of those shots end up having mercury and aluminum, which only go in one place. We can't urinate them. It can't get out of our body, and it goes in one place. And that place is it goes to your brain and creates blockages. And so that's where some of those theories because it's never ever really proven
And
because
it's
it's
never
not
gonna be-
allowed.
yeah.
Because you know what I mean, and so yeah, so those are some of those theories. But that's when I noticed a change in Zen
Mm.
and its learning capabilities. So we even knew prior to 3 years old, around 1.5 to 2 years old,
That he was gonna
that
be
he was
in,
different.
That he was
Yeah.
gonna be different.
And the process started in Salt Lake,
Mhm.
but they were not ahead of the time. It's new to them. Some woman would come in and give me a book here. This is what you have to practice with your kid. And I'm like, I don't know what to do, and she'd come once a week. And I was like, what the hell? And then in Cali, when we moved to Cali, they were all like ducks in a row. They knew what to do.
They were more experienced with those.
Way more
situations?
experience. 3 years old, they were able to do the diagnostic or diagnosis, and confirm it, and then all the benefits started coming in, right?
Yeah.
So their mom is his caretaker, and get paid to watch him, and I did my work, and Zion, and dealing with her, and so it was a learning process, but in that I realized I can't raise my kids the way I was raised.
Yeah.
It's
No.
not gonna work.
Mm.
And so I had to learn how to communicate differently, aside from not just that, but the challenges within the marriage back then, and
Yeah.
my daughter, and being able to learn how to communicate differently.
Because right now in our generation, we're more educated and we have the internet and we have more resources
Yeah.
from where to learn.
Yeah.
For example, our parents were just based on how they grew up, and they didn't have internet, so they couldn't look up what to do or
Yeah.
get more information on.
Yeah. Which is
So we can get more educated in that sense.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, back then, really, when you think about it, those learning things came from our ancestors.
Yeah.
Was when people were talking, when like families actually spoke and told stories,
Yeah.
and gathered, and were like, this is the way, because we tried it this way and it didn't work. And even back then, of course, there's always still drama. There's always still people in the tribe that were like fuckers, and whatever. But
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, like, we have to learn from our past, and learn new ways of changing and improving and elevating. It just isn't spoken, and we're not taught these things anymore.
No.
There are no more rites of passages for kids. I talk to as many people as I can, because the rites of passages now for kids is you turn 21 and you get fucked up. It's
Yeah.
really what it is. But back then, like, even when our grandmother was young, they had obligations.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had your rite of passage now is you're in charge of cooking food. You're in charge of, going and doing this. And responsibilities, right? And even way before then, like hunting.
You have to go hunt.
Boys
Yeah.
learning to hunt, learning all these skills. You're a man now. You killed a deer. Congratulations. Not saying that everyone should go kill a deer, but you know what I'm saying? Like those things have those things are different now. There could be something now if still taught and implemented in a good way, but it just isn't done, and it's been lost, and it's something that group Sacred Sons is trying to bring back. It's trying to bring back it's called Sacred Sons because it's trying to bring back the sacredness to life, the sacredness to what life is, sacredness to caring about the planet. And that's where my journey began with Zen, is like, once I found out, well, what's going in my body? Well, why is there fluoride in the water? Okay, doing my research, Hitler used fluoride in the water in the concentration camps. Why did he do that? And it was to dumb down, because what fluoride does is it calcifies the pineal gland.
Yeah.
And the pineal gland creates DMT, natural DMT in your REM sleep. DMT is found in ayahuasca, which is a hallucinogen that is sacred medicine. And when you split the brain in half, it looks like the Eye of Ra, which is what the Egyptians saw. When you look at the pineal gland and how it's formed, it's the Eye of Ra, which you tie all that in, and it's the third eye, your third eye chakra. And so why are they trying to calcify that? And so it's just question after question after question after question. They kept coming up. and you keep digging and digging and digging and digging, and you find something new. And there's 3 steps with that's what they call the awakening process, right? When you start to wake up and realize what is
When you
really
start
going
questioning
on. Yeah.
everything that you have been taught. Yeah.
Yeah, when you start to wake up to everything around you, what's going on? Why is this weird? Why is this
Yeah.
not working? And so that digs in. And so a great example for, I feel like, the young people in this time is Russell Brand. If anyone does know Russell Brand and they see his public growth, the awakening process looks like you're awakened from the reality and you're pissed.
No, yeah.
And you're fucking mad, and you're like, what the fuck is the government doing this and that? Fuck that, fuck that. And then you internalize that, and then you look inward, and then you start to go through that spiritual side.
Yeah.
And this is when that spiritual side mixes with that, when you're saying is the group spiritual. No, but you find spirituality within it.
Yeah.
Because once you start to realize what's sacred and what you does matter and what doesn't matter, then you start to tune into the vibration of the planet and those around you and caring more.
Yeah.
Because now you're like, okay, yeah, this is sacred. And now now that I know what's going in my body, I care not just what's going on in my body, but I care about how much water I'm wasting. How much, like, where my trash is going.
No,
what am
yeah.
I doing my part to create that, right?
Yeah. But I was reading about that, and even though the percentage of water that we could save by doing those habits, by applying those habits, it's very low compared to all these corporations and all the water they waste. But it's a way to feel good with yourself and know that you're doing something for the planet.
It is. It's psychological, because really at the end of the day, the biggest change is going to be in the mass production.
In the
of
mass
things.
production, yeah.
It really is.
And we live in a system where it's all about profit. And all the bad stuff that we eat and everything goes related to how much money these corporations and
100%.
how much they make and how much they can save.
Yeah.
By poisoning.
Yeah, and there's only so much that you can do on a daily basis. I think what's worth it at the end is being in integrity and knowing that you're at least doing your part, and the butterfly effect again. Yeah. The butterfly effect, right? Like, you have to walk the talk. Like, if you're gonna talk, like, actually do it.
Yeah.
Show up. If you're gonna say you're gonna be this person, do that. And that's what I try to do at work, for example. You know, be kind to everyone, chill, whatever, and be able to influence them in a way that I can show them by the way I show up for myself.
Yeah.
Versus anyone else.
Because no one else is gonna do it for you.
There's no one else.
Yeah.
I throw away my trash. I can put my trash in my recycler, and I can put my trash in my trash.
Yeah.
And that's all I can do. Well, I can't go over there and, like, actually distribute the fucking recycle and make sure they're fucking doing what they have to. I can't.
But as long as you do your part, you're gonna be satisfied.
And you that's all you can do.
Yeah.
Because you can't control everything else. You can only control what you can control.
Yeah.
You can't control the people, only your energy and how you show up for yourself and others. And I think that's the biggest key to being able to somewhat live a stress-free life, in a sense.
Yeah. We're all gonna end up dying.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of trying your best to become the best version of yourself and be satisfied with who you turn into.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, ultimately.
And going back to the conspiracies and all the stuff, I was talking with Victor, with one of my best friends, my brother.
Yeah.
And he's very against conspiracies because there's no proof. But you have all these resources and data and factors that make sense when you talk about conspiracies and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, there's never going to be proof. There's never going to be evidence because it's not good for them, for the hired people.
It's funny, the word conspiracy in itself, it's to conspire something, right?
Yeah.
But there's always truth to a story.
Yeah, there's always truth to a story.
Just like, where did the story of dragon come from?
Oh, yeah.
Someone had to see something to make it sound like it is, right? And I know he joined the military. He's the one that went to...
Yeah, he's a Marine, yeah.
Yeah, so, there's a lot of... There's different levels within everything, though, and when it comes to government. That's a whole nother, topic that we can go into. But there's situations where our president has not even known certain things, that are going on within certain
Oh
levels.
yeah, there's
You know,
people way at the top.
way
and
at the
then,
top. You know, you're talking about the CIA, who was, all this stuff, and the Federal Bank Reserve, which is not an actual, it's its own state
It's
within
its
its
own-
own
yeah.
state. There's 3 places in the world where it's its own state within its state. The Federal Reserve is one of them. The Vatican is the other one, and there's a bank in England, a
Oh,
certain
okay.
bank, and it's those three, and that's what has been tied
And
with.
those are the ones that control.
That's what's been tied with the Illuminati in a sense, or now called the Cabal,
Yeah.
because they're not called the Illuminati anymore.
Hmm.
It's a Cabal, and the reason they're not called the Illuminati is because not everyone within that circle, for example, the Freemason, who are tied to the Illuminati, again, certain levels, and they have levels literally where after 33 Mason, that's when you start getting information. But in order to get to 33, and to that matter a significant number, the Trinity 33, it's always like different numerical, it's always symbolism. Everything is
Yeah.
symbolism when it comes to those who want to control the narrative,
Yeah,
which is what it is. It's always symbolism. And
because
so
it gets to you subconsciously.
correct,
indirectly.
because there is a universal law that the things that they do cannot happen without us having knowledge.
Yeah.
And this is where horror movies come in. This is where things of that situation,
vibrations
the
and-
vibration. If you're aware that these things are happening, you might not accept it, but you're looking at it and you're accepting it, then they're allowed to continue doing it in
Doing
the
it.
universe.
Yeah.
And this is where the whole child trafficking and all this stuff comes into play, because of these situations that we are allowed to let happen, but is all really, really deep shit.
Oh yeah.
And this is why all this stuff is now coming out of the surface. And
Yeah,
they
it's
said
getting
that-
more exposure on
Yeah.
all the
they
information.
say that COVID was it's a thing that, like, COVID, they say, created the energy of 2020 was when so when Jesus was born is where Saturn and Jupiter aligned, that created the North Star. Those
Mhm.
two planets that created bright light. That happened back in 2020 for the first time since his birth,
Oh really?
which is what they call the return of the Christ, which is Christ consciousness. So Christ consciousness is not the return of Jesus on a physical form, because Christ wasn't even his last name.
Mm-hmm.
Christ consciousness is actually also known as the rainbow body. It is the return of the consciousness of the planet, a change in energetic fields, a change in being able to go to the age of Aquarius, where we are actually now going into a different energy. And what happened during that time? Things that were swept under the surface were coming back up. You're talking about the woman movement, the like the whole, like, we're not
All
gonna,
the movements. and-
all the movements were coming up.
yeah.
Black Lives Matter, all of that shit. We're the only country, we don't actually apologize for the shit we've done. It's been all swept under the rug, and all that happened, that energetic field, is all coming out.
Yeah.
And so everyone was fucking pissed. The energy was, everyone was mad. Well, I'm this person. I want to be seen. I am not he or she. I'm him, she, and she.
I'm everything.
I'm everything. And like all this stuff like is just coming up because it was never dealt with. At least in Germany, they have signs to remember the Holocaust.
Yeah.
They teach the kids in school, this is what we did and this is who we will never be again.
Yeah.
And so in a funny way, I believe that the land is calling our ancestors back. And so for years they've been dealing with illegal immigrants. Well, guess what? The land is calling us back. We're being called back to the land to help it heal, because it has been damaged with blood. It has been damaged with so much pain, so much trauma.
Yeah.
And the only way that we're going to heal as a society and as a country and as a world is to acknowledge the pain that we've caused and to help
not to
heal
repeat
it
it,
again.
yeah.
Exactly. And to come back.
But I
and
feel like that's probably gonna take
it's
years.
hard, dude.
It's gonna be very hard.
it's hard.
Yeah.
I've said it. Mexico is never going to heal until they go back to our ancestral roots. Until we remember the sacredness of that land, we fucking were badass motherfuckers. We built pyramids, dude.
Yeah.
There's pyramids over there still. There's things over there that like we did as a nation. We were the corn nation here. The reason why there's cornfields here is because of our ancestors.
Yeah.
All those fields, the flat fields, were flat. This land was flat for a reason, and it was because of the corn that we brought. We introduced corn to the east, to the other country, and they brought flour to us. But we were the corn nation, and we built pyramids, and we were badass. And Mexico is never gonna go to a place of full, like, domination, because all the vegetables that come in our grocery stores here, majority come from Mexico.
Yeah.
A lot of the work here comes from that. But Mexico itself is trapped in the illusion of the United States.
Oh yeah.
If you ain't got dope kicks, you ain't got name brand, you ain't shit. And everyone wants to come here, but when you come here, you realize how much of a hard work it is. But
we go back to the first topic that we mentioned of the influence of the United States, of how with the media and the movies and the culture, the fashion and everything,
which we all love.
It's art
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But it goes back to profit and how they're profiting from the culture and all the influence they have on other countries.
And it's beautiful though to see like a lot of awesome directors, Mexican directors, and all this stuff growing up and becoming famous here. And like, you know, you have a lot of great movies. You have Star Wars characters that are, you know, Hispanic now, and you got like a lot of great stuff. And it's just about learning to accept everyone, you know. It's and I think that really what really one thing that stuck with me, and I don't know if you remember me having this conversation with my grandma, was what was your family's name before the Spanish name that came into us? Ruiz or Ramirez. That's the conquistador. What was your language? What was that? Like, it's interesting to know that. What's the dialect? What was your family name? That's what is important for us to know, so that we can continue that heritage and we can connect to that land.
And not lose that information.
Exactly, and be able to pass it, because our family forgot. We stopped telling stories. Our family stopped telling stories. So we don't know so much. So as a matter of fact, on Prime Day the other day, I bought a DNA test for our grandma.
I was going to buy it. Yeah, it was 40 or 60.
I got it.
You got it?
No
way.
Yes, I got it. So that's my
I'm
goal,
probably
is
getting
to
one
get
on Black Friday.
Yes, so I want to get one too, because I've only had on 23andMe, but Ancestry.com has more information. They're the kings, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole too.
Yeah.
Of that information, but yeah, I got that for him because it's important to know like where your roots are and all that. It creates healing in itself.
Yeah.
And connection to the sacredness of and remembering. I think that it brings you back to humbleness when you. To me, I always say church. Nature's my church. And now that I've become more tuned with myself,
we're so connected to nature, but we forget it.
Yeah, it's one thing that really grounding is real.
Yeah,
you're exchanging your
energy with the earth.
Yeah, it's science and spirit and religion. It's all one. You can't deny one without the other. If we can determine that the earth has an energetic field that rises from the top of the polar and down to the bottom, and they can actually also say that our heart generates the same field to the width of your arms, like how are you not taking off your shoes and being grounded on the grass? How does that not feel good? And how you deny that exchange of energy and feeling peace when you're out in nature and feeling all these things, and we just have lost that, and so all that stress stays within our bodies because we're just sitting down and working.
Yeah,
you know, some of us at least. You know, some people work in construction or have sports as their career, and great, and sure they live.
No, but
you know,
even like after you get off work, you just go home and you play video games or whatever, but you don't really connect with that side of nature. And
and
let me go to the park. Let me just go outside and see nature.
And it's as simple as that. Honestly, it's as simple as like, let me get in the hot tub.
Yeah.
After work, and like you're connecting with water, which is an element. So any way that you connect with elements, whether it's grounding, your feet bare on the ground, and that's what they even
Yeah.
sell grounding pads now for people at work.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you take off your shoes
it's
and
like
you can send
grass.
it, and it vibrates like the energy
Oh.
of the earth
Oh,
to
that's
help you
cool.
ground as you're sitting on your and or if you just jump in water or sit by a campfire, how relaxing is that? Like,
Oh, yeah.
it's all the elements in general that do kind of settle your
Stable
anxiety.
your vibrations and
Yeah, and they
because even if technology is a big tool for us
Mhm.
on everything, it could be a distraction, and it's probably turning more into a distraction than a tool. And
You-
we need to learn how to deal with that.
I was gonna say, I think that what we need to learn is, we honestly, even though I love talking about Earth and connecting and living like, connecting to those ancestral roots, and how awesome would it be to live out in nature, right? We actually live in the best time that we ever have,
Yeah.
because we have like the most knowledge, and
On
this is
medicine, on technology,
everything.
on
Correct.
everything.
And this is why the planet is waking up so much, right? Is because the internet you can't hide anything anymore. As much as they try to, you can't.
Yeah.
Everyone finds what's going on around the world. There's so much.
I mean, they try to hide it, like
Yeah.
from Facebook, Instagram, and these platforms. I think the only one is Twitter and TikTok, the ones that are still trying
Yeah.
to let people speak their mind.
Especially TikTok, hence why they
Especially
were trying to.
that's why they're trying to
Right.
ban.
Yeah.
to ban it.
Yeah. Yeah, because now you're fighting against information you can't control.
You can't
know?
control the
Yeah.
information on
And there's
TikTok.
there's a lot of stuff out there that I even run into on TikTok that I'm like, oh, like
Yeah, it's
I don't
very-
see this before.
Because you have people
Yeah.
knowing their shit and
Yeah.
spreading it with people. So
Well, and that's the thing, is that even if they're not displaying it, you can still find it,
Mhm.
because once someone tells someone and you search for it, you can find it.
you can find it.
Even if it's not full disclosure, then that you'll find something at least.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key. And ultimately, I was talking to Christina about this. Is that ultimately when they talk about full disclosure and all these disclosures out there, is really what it comes down to about them disclosing the truth, is that there's technology out there that can heal the planet and heal the world already, and heal cancer and
major
certain
effect, huh?
things. And so whistleblowers are coming out and saying this because they have family that have died from these things that they know they could have saved them from. And so part of that is the full disclosure side, the full process of awakening and learning to heal yourself and healing internally to help heal those around you and the planet around you, is to have full disclosure. And the full disclosure is that healing and learning how to take care of the planet and all that, and having the resources to do so.
Yeah.
That's every president has tried to. Another Kennedy is trying to run right now, and
Yeah.
they tried to disclose things in the past, but we'll see what happens. Ultimately, it has to start within, though.
Yeah. Definitely.
And
Just learning.
yeah.
It's always about learning and
I think it always comes down to being grateful, no matter how you were coming back
loving
full
each other
circle.
too.
Coming full circle to what we're talking about is learning to forgive. Learning that only the people that you grew up with, like, they only did their best with the knowledge that they
With the
had.
knowledge that they had.
And learning.
It wasn't their fault to be in that situation where
Right.
it was their parents, and then their parents had their parents teaching them bad stuff.
And that shit was worse, I'm sure.
It goes way back, so it's
Yeah.
no one's fault.
Yeah, so I teach like the kids love, appreciation, forgiveness. You can't do for anyone if you can't do that for anyone else, if you didn't do it for yourself
Mhm.
first.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately the shit starts to brush off. People
Yeah.
do shit. Sure, it's frustrating. Sure, I still get mad. I'm not perfect. I fucking get mad. Sure, I'll
'Cause it's
get home and be
normal.
like,
It's-
fuck it, I want to drink. Like once in a while. Yeah, it's normal. It's normal. It's a balance.
It's a balance of all your emotions.
Yeah.
Into,
Anger's a feeling.
Yeah.
Is a feeling wrong? No.
No.
It's how you display it that determines
If it's bad or
how it
if
affects your relationships and whatnot.
Yeah.
And everything. It's a balance. And so, like, there's extremes to everything, even good. There's
Even
extremes to good.
Yeah.
Overprotection, not letting someone understand what is real and what isn't real. That's bad too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's already an hour and 10 minutes, I think. I think we can end this podcast right here.
Yeah,
We-
yeah.
We can do another podcast later on.
Yeah, we will.
Definitely.
I don't know
Is
if it went where you wanted it to go,
Oh, yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna write bullet points, but I was pretty confident that the podcast was gonna flow and do its thing, and I think
Yeah.
it did.
Good.
But thanks to everyone who watched this podcast. Very grateful for the time, for your time, for coming,
Yeah, of course, bro.
and everything good. I think we'll see you guys on the next one.
Thank you for watching.